Hi, this is Rachelle with Journal Life's Journey, and I'm going to be making a project using the Your Creative Studio box from January 2023. If you would like to see the unboxing, I will link to it in the iCard up above and in the description box below. The unboxing was done on my other channel over at SCRAPCRAFTASTIC. So here I have a window junk mail envelope. It is a larger size. I think it is approximately, when it's folded in half, I think it's approximately 6 by 9. And I trimmed off a tiny window that it had near the top edge, and I trimmed off the ends so that I could open and lay this flat. To start with, I'm going to use some of the items from the box to create a collage on the outside of the envelope. When I started this, my main idea was to make a collage because when I do the unboxings for Your Creative Studio, I'm always mentioning that the items included in the box would work great for a collage. So this is going to be an example of how you can do that. And I also changed from my initial idea. Initially, this was going to be kind of like a pocket that would go on the page, like an insert, a junk journal insert. But as you watch the video, you will see I kind of changed that concept. And I pretty much just went where the products in the box took me. So here I'm using a Scotch Create glue stick to glue down the pieces. I'm also using some of the larger papers that came in the box and tearing those down to a more manageable size and to a size that works well for collaging. And since the theme of this box is vintage trains, and it looks like it also has a vintage postal look and maps, I'm guessing that this is a travel theme. So I'm going to try and keep in line with that theme. And for the majority of this project, I want to use pieces from Your Creative Studio. If you would like more information about the subscription box from Your Creative Studio, I will link to them in the description box below. You can go check it out. They also sell individual items as well. And I do find it easier to do collage when I'm using a window envelope where I want to keep the window open, because it's easier to fit the pieces around the window instead of trying to cut one piece of scrapbook paper or whatever paper you're using to create that opening. So building around the opening is really much easier. And I'm also being careful to make sure that whatever pieces go over the fold completely. And I try not to put anything just close to the edge of the fold so that once I fold the paper, it won't lift. I hope that makes sense. It doesn't sound like it makes sense to me, but it does make sense. In other words, don't put an edge of a piece of collage paper too close to the edge of the fold or where the paper will fold, because it will lift. And this Tim Holtz ruler comes in really handy when you're trying to tear paper and make sure that it is straight, because I can see through it and I can line up the edge with the markings on the ruler. It makes things so much easier. I don't know why I never noticed that before, but when I was tearing papers for this, I noticed it and I started using that to line my paper up with, and it worked great. Here I'm taking my card and smoothing down the collage pieces, and I'm also trimming around the edges. So here I'm just going through some of the sticker ephemera that came with the box because I wanted to add a little more to the collage. I was looking for pieces that were more travel related. This package had a variety of different things. So it had clothing, accessories, some Paris related ephemera, some in other languages that I wasn't sure of. So I tried to stick with things that seemed to make more sense with the travel theme of my piece here, of the collage. And this is actually going to be a cover, so I'll just start calling it the cover. And I'm just placing bits and pieces of these pieces. I think these are parts of ads and tickets and things like that. So I'm just placing those around the collage to add a little more contrast. And I look at the text on these as being a design element that adds to the collage. And now I'm going to add a few pieces of washi tape. And what I usually do when I add the washi, I look around and see where I feel like pieces may come up or where I need a little more contrast. And I place the washi there. And usually I do add a little glue stick to the washi tape just to make sure that it stays in place. So now I'm working on the fold. Didn't want to fold too early while the glue was still wet. And using my card to reinforce the fold. I took a little break to decide what I wanted to do next. And I had these digital images in my stash that I've been holding on to. So I went through those and found something that I would like to use in the window of the envelope. So I trimmed her down and now I am going to glue her in place. So now that the image is in the window, I'm going to work on covering the inside of the envelope. I have a little piece here that's coming up, adding a little glue to make sure that stays down. For the paper that I'm using on the inside, it's a fairly lightweight paper. I think it might be 24-pound paper. It may even be 20-pound paper. that has been coffee or tea stained. I'm also going around the edges of the envelope to make sure that the extra pieces are glued down and stay in place. And I'm going to add glue stick to the main part of the inside of the envelope, and then I'll go around the edge with liquid glue. If you want to know more about the glues that I use, I do have a video of my 10 favorites, the 10 best glues that I use. I'll link to that in the iCard up above. And before I glue that down well, I didn't think of this until after I'd already put the glue down. I wanted to reinforce that fold. So I added some masking tape, and now I'm just going to reapply the glue stick. Now here I tried to line up two edges of the paper, and I also need to stay away from the fold. I didn't want the paper to overhang where the fold is. I'm still a novice at lining things up where there is a fold. I always try to get as close as I can, and usually I end up getting too close. So here I'm pulling it up and trying to move it over just a hair, and also trying to make sure that the paper is down straight. Once the paper has been wet and tea or coffee stained, the edges seem to be a little not straight anymore. I don't know what happens, but yeah, I had to fiddle with it quite a bit, and I trimmed off the masking tape. And I'm going to use my ruler to trim off the excess. And I'm keeping the pieces that I tear off because I can use some of those further on in the project. So I'm just using my ruler to burnish that down, try to get out any air bubbles if possible. And I am going to do the other side of the inside of the envelope. This time I don't attempt to line it up with either edge. I just try to make sure I line it up well with the fold. And I still had to battle with it a little bit. And all I can just say is that I chalk it up to the paper being wet and kind of warping a little bit. And so what I thought was straight wasn't actually straight. What I thought was far enough away from the fold is still a little too close, but I'm going to make it work. And I'm just burnishing out the glue and making sure I don't have any air bubbles. And I'm going to use my ruler again to trim off the excess. Just using my cloth to make sure any excess glue in the fold is up. I feel like I'm a little too close to the fold, but I also think once I let it dry, it will be fine. So here I have a couple of the envelopes that were in the box. This is the packaging, and I used my heating tool to remove the stickers that were on these envelopes, and I'm going to use them as part of the project. I'm going to make them little pockets. And here I'm just using some of the offcuts from covering the inside of the envelope to create a waterfall. And I'm just measuring up 2 inches on these from the bottom. and marking it. So now I have a simple waterfall on the left, and I will use the packaging from the sub box on the right. Here I am trimming down another piece of coffee or tea stained paper that I can use to mat the envelopes. I try to be really careful when I take the stickers off of these envelopes because I do like to use them in projects. Sometimes they come off better than others, and sometimes they leave a little residue behind. So I do like to mat them when I use them. So here I'm going to go ahead and ink them up. I'm using Vintage Photo Distress ink. So now that I have the pieces inked up, I'm going to go ahead and mat the envelopes. And I'm just going around and inking the actual envelope. And here I'm inking around the envelope cover. Now initially for the waterfall, I was going to sew those two pieces together on the sewing machine, but I was a little lazy and I didn't really feel like it. So I felt like I could come up with a better solution. So instead of sewing it, I'm going to use this baker's twine. It's from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use that as a closure for the envelopes. And I'm going to use my artist tape to hold the baker's twine in place. And then, as I mentioned, I decided not to sew, and I didn't want to use a saddle stitch or anything like that. So I'm just going to use my pokey tool to poke a hole on two sides of the waterfall and use the baker's twine to tie the two pieces together. And I'm just circling the pokey tool around to make the hole a little bit bigger so that the twine would go through. So now both sides match as far as the twine pulls it all together. I'm going through my digitals again to see if I have any pieces that I can use on the inside of this project. I'm thinking of calling it a travel folder. I don't really specifically have a name yet. If you have any suggestions, let me know in the comments below. So here I've been playing around with different ideas and trying things out. I know that I want to use all the stamps that came with the sub box. So I'm going to start here. I have this circle that I punched with one of my punches, and I am going to use this stamp, and I am going to stamp in the center of the circle, just using a scrap piece of paper to do my first stamp since I haven't used these yet. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp on my circle. I'm using Ground Espresso archival ink, and the circle was punched from a piece of file folder. Going to ink around the edges. I wanted a smaller circle, but my smaller punch is a little bit too small for this stamp, so I had to go bigger. Now I'm looking through the sticker ephemera again to see if there's anything that I can use on the inside of the envelope or travel folder. So now I'm working on embellishing the waterfall. I'm leaving some flaps empty, some will be decorated. Although the paper is quite thin, I did want to leave some writing space. And here I'm going to go ahead and stamp on the bottom tier of the waterfall. Just working on placement and how I'm going to embellish the tiers. So I'm embellishing the second tier of the waterfall using more of the papers from the subscription box, also using the torn pieces that I have as well. So here I kind of want this to look somewhat like a seal, but I also want it to hang off the edge of that second tier. So I wanted to put something on the back of it, also to help make it a little bit more sturdy. I wanted this to kind of have the look of maybe a brochure. And I know it's a little fancy for a vintage style brochure, but I don't know. That was just kind of the feel that I wanted the waterfall to have. So here I'm just taking off a very small piece of the corners of the waterfall. And I wasn't happy with the back of my faux seal, so I'm going to add a piece to the back just to add a little bit something more to it. And I'm using one of the stickers from the sub box on this circle that I punched out, and I'm going to place that. And I think that works great. So that when that tier is flipped up, you see another seal. And I'm a little concerned about the waterfall staying closed. And I also decided to make this piece a pocket. So I'm adding some masking tape to the edge where the pocket would open to reinforce it, because as I mentioned, this paper is a bit thin and I just want to make sure that it will hold up. So here I'm going to get started on embellishing the two envelopes, and I'm going to do somewhat of a collage on the front of them as well. With the exception of the ladies, the collage pieces that I'm using are from Your Creative Studio sub box for January. So looking at the seal, I feel like it is still a little plain. So I'm trying to figure out how I can fix that. And I decided to use the other stamp on the bottom envelope. I'm not sure how well this is going to stamp since it's not a smooth surface, but I'm going to give it a shot. It wasn't the best impression, but it still had that old vintage look, so I was okay with that. I'm just going to tie these back up so that I can get a better look and see where I'm at. So moving on, I'm going to make a journaling card with the sticky notes that came with the sub box. So I'm just adding some glue and sticking the sticky note down to a piece of cardstock and then trimming off the excess. I'm going to use my corner rounder, the 1/4 inch size, to round the corners. And I'm thinking of making the envelopes pockets as well. So just checking to see if my journaling card will fit behind those. And it does. So because of the direction that I put the tape on, I want to just make sure that my journaling card doesn't get caught on that. So I'm going to run a piece in the opposite direction. I'm going to go ahead and glue down 3 sides of the envelope so that it will make a pocket. Almost put it on upside down. So now the second envelope is in place as well. And I'm going to go ahead and glue down the waterfall, making that a pocket as well. So I'm adding glue to 3 sides. Just tightening up the baker's twine so that my tiers don't wiggle so much. And just sliding in my journaling card to make sure that's going to fit. And now what I suspected would happen has happened, and I didn't make a closure for it, but the flaps or the tiers on the waterfall are flapping. So I'm testing it out with a paper clip to see if that helps, and it does. So then I decide that I need to make a paper clip for it. But before I do, I'm going to go ahead and make another journal card to fit behind the second envelope. So there it is with the 2 journaling cards inside the pockets. So now I'm going to go ahead and work on the empty space on my faux seal. So I punched out a circle to cover where I stamped it at, and I'm going to use the original file folder piece as a mask around the larger circle. And I'm going to use a stamp from a previous Your Creative Studio box to stamp just some text around the edge of the main circle. Again, I'm using ground espresso, and I'm just carefully stamping around the edge. And I'm removing my mask, and that worked. It added a little something to it. Now it doesn't stand out so bright and glaring. It seemed like it was bright and glaring to me. Maybe it wasn't. But now it has a little text on it, kind of pushes it back a little bit. So this is what it's looking like. And now I have to do something about the paper clip That's just not working out. And I also don't like the way that the last flap is wiggling back and forth, so I'm going to use a little washi tape to secure that. It's also kind of give it a look like it's been well used and held together over time with tape. Hopefully that's the look it's given. Let me know what you think in the comments below. So now to fix the flopping flaps, I'm going to make a hidden paper clip. So I'm just trimming down this paper to the size that I need. Then I'm going to fold it in half, place my paper clip on. Then I'm going to fold up the bottom piece. I barely have enough to do this, but I'm folding up the bottom piece. Then I'm folding up the bottom piece on the other side as well, making it a little longer than that first piece. I'm just folding it over to hide the paper clip. So basically I folded the paper in somewhat of a W. I just made one V. One part of the W was shorter than the other part. And I used the extra to fold over to hide the top of the paper clip. So here I'm just inking it up. And I'm going to use the Fabri-Tac glue to glue everything together because I want to make sure that this holds up since it has an actual paper clip in it. So I'm just gluing the flap over and covering the paper clip. So now I have a paper clip that I can slide on. So while I'm deciding how I want to decorate the paper clip, I'm going to go ahead and make the insert for the large pocket. And I'm trimming down a piece of cream colored cardstock for that. So I want this insert to somewhat be like a ticket. So I am going to cover it or make a vellum overlay for it. So I aligned the vellum, one of the vellum pieces that came with the kit that had a train on it. I felt like that would be a good piece for this. And I took the excess and folded it over the back, adhered it with some glue stick. And here I'm trimming off the excess vellum. And I'm just going to ink around the edges. And then I'm just going to slide that in the pocket. So there's room for journaling underneath the vellum and also on the back of this card. Now to go ahead and embellish the paper clip. And I'm adding the pieces to the paper clip, and I'm also adding one of the stickers that came in the sub box. So now I have a way to keep the flaps in place when opening and closing the travel folder. That is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll holler at y'all next time. Bye.